Think back to when you were a child. Was there ever a moment when you felt out of place? Or like the world saw you as something that you weren't? Hold that feeling for a moment. Let it settle into your pelvis. Now, imagine that moment isn't fleeting. Imagine it is the air that you breathe, shaping how others saw you, shaping how you saw yourself. What you're about to hear, these are not just stories. They are memories carried for years, held in silence, and now spoken aloud. While these stories unfold, you will witness movement, a dance, in response to something that cannot be named. This movement is not just mine, it's shared. It exists in the space between us, in the way that we carry each other's weight. Tonight, this journey is also carried in movement by my dance partner, Susan Marie Fronchek. The body holds what words cannot. The body remembers what history tries to erase. The body knows the weight and the beauty of resilience, of survival, and of something breaking pitch.
When I was 5, on my first day of school, my teacher purposely put me in the wrong bus, sending me to the other side of town. She told me no one would miss me.
When I was in the 4th grade, I remember them throwing a parade on MLK Day outside my school. Our teacher didn't want to tell us what any of it meant. My parents did.
I was 8 when my teacher in Alabama corrected my pronunciation in front of the whole class, mocking my Hispanic accent. I stopped speaking up in class after that.
My parents moved us to Texas in 5th grade. We were the only Latino kids in the school. The staff decided to put a bulletin board up telling everyone this with our pictures on it. We were a target on day 1.
We lived in a sundown town when I was 5. There were alarms that went off at 9 p.m. I remember my dad looking out the window, closing the curtains in fear, with his gun at the door.
I was 6 when I learned what it meant to be Chinese in a town that didn't want me. We were one of 2 Asian families, and that was enough to make us a target. At school, we were called names. Some days it was worse than words. They picked me up and hung me on the fence by the hood of my jacket, left me dangling, and laughed at me. They poured a bottle of glue over my head, watched as it dripped, and I cried. At home, they turned on our outside taps, flooding our yard, running up our water bill. Little boys with too much hate passed down to them. I was 6, too young to know what racism was, but old enough to feel it. The thing that I learned was that there was something wrong with me for being Chinese. I carried that with me for years. It settled in my bones before I ever had words for it, before I ever knew how to unlearn it. But now I know that shame was not mine to carry. I want to share with you why I'm here, why I moved through this work, and why these stories have wrapped themselves around my ribs and won't let go. I didn't always have language for what I felt. For years, I held it inside. No words, just weight. Just the shape of things unspoken. But silence does not erase truth, and I knew I had to begin my own healing. It was not immediate. Healing is a slow unraveling that continues today. It took years before I could offer this work to others. Because first I had to hold my own story. I had to sit with the weight of it, for what I saw, and for what I carried, and for the way that silence stuck in my throat, and for the way the world told me to shrink. And only then, only after I unraveled my own silence, could I begin to collect the stories of others. Not just mine, ours. Not just the ones that shouted, but also the ones that whisper. Not just the ones that hurt, but the ones that reveal. The ones that make us stop, and the ones that make us listen. These stories don't belong to just me. They belong to all of us. And as you listen, maybe something will bubble up in you. A memory or a question or a moment of recognition. Hold on to that. What you see behind me is a project built on this, about naming what has been left unsaid, and about holding each other in the telling of it. This space is for you too. These stories are to be seen and heard and witnessed and to be added to. So if you feel called to, you're invited to write, to share, to place your story among the others. For now, I invite you to listen, to breathe, to let these stories land softly in you. And maybe by the end, you'll see them more clearly, to hold them with care, and to understand what they ask of you. They tell me I haven't experienced racism, as if it would announce itself, as if it only exists in the way they are taught to see it. The kids say hate, they say slurs, they say violence or anger, what they see in the movies. And I ask them, but what about the quiet kinds? What about the things said that slip between words, that thread themselves into laughter, into laws, into spaces where we're told this is not for you? What about the pause before saying my name, the one that stretches just a second too long? What about the lunchbox I stopped bringing because the smell of home was too much for them to stomach? What about the way history disappears? Entire truths erased with the printing of a textbook, rewritten to make them feel more comfortable. They look at me, they tilt their heads, considering, and I say, that's racism. And a hand starts to move, small fingers tracing the edge of a bubble, writing story onto its surface, giving shape to something unspoken. The bubbles grow one after another, each one a moment that might have been swallowed and forgotten, each one a whisper finally spoken aloud. A girl says, I was told not to speak Spanish. But when they wanted somebody to translate, she was their first call. That's racism. A boy says, "My friend told me that I was one of the good ones." His voice is careful and questioning it, as if he was trying to decide whether that was a compliment. That's racism. A woman says, "They told me my name was too hard to pronounce, so they gave her another, something simpler, a name that did not belong to her, but one they could hold easier on their tongues." That's racism. The room shifts, the air changes, the kids, the adults, the voices in between, they start to see it. Not just in shouts, but in whispers. Not just in fists, but in laws. Not just in history, but in the here and now, in the very way that we move through the world. They see it. And once they see it, they can't unsee it. Colorism exists within every group of people. It's not just about race, it's about shade. Lighter, darker, more acceptable, less. It's the way the skin becomes a measure of worth, a currency of belonging. Colorism is shaped by an anti-Black history, by colonial legacies that privileged light skin. So the closer your skin tone is to whiteness, the more value is assigned. And I've seen it again and again in the way people are treated, even within the same family. The way that people are told that they're not light enough to be desirable, or they're not dark enough to belong. And for mixed race individuals, the contradictions cut even deeper. Too much, not enough, always in between. This is how deeply colorism is embedded into our societies. These stories of colorism are deeply personal. I remember in middle school and elementary being made fun of for my lighter skin. I was told by other girls with darker skin that I looked weird in braids, and I should wear my hair a certain way because I was light-skinned. "You're not pretty. You're too dark-skinned. I like light skin." I was the only Black girl in my class, and I was told by the students to lighten my skin. It's painful to realize how these messages take root so early, how skin tone becomes a measure of worth in spaces where we should feel most accepted. I've come to realize that most people don't know what to do, how to respond when they face racism. I thought it was just me, but it's not. I hear this story over and over again where people freeze. They say, "I didn't know what to say." Flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. It's not just for danger. It's what so many of us do when we face racism too. Some freeze, caught in the shock or the fear, the words sitting in their throats, heady as stone. And some fawn, smooth it over, laugh along, make it easier for the ones who are making them uncomfortable. It happens in the quiet ways, the racial assumptions about language and identity, the ways we are expected to validate curiosity about our cultures and to make it palatable, to absorb the discomfort so they don't have to feel it. We hold their feelings while they step out of line. And it's not just us. It's not just the ones who experience racism. The people who witness it have the same response. I've seen people who didn't step in, not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know what to do. The more stories I hear, the more I realize how interconnected we are. Each story unlocks another, bubbles forming bubbles, floating outward, rising higher, an ebb and flow of experience tangled together. This is how it stays with us, not just in memory, but in the way we move it. The weight of it lingers in the body and in the breath. And so we dance to let it rise, to let it settle, and to make room for what comes next.
The cops followed us home every night. We crossed the border into the nice neighborhood. They would tail us to our front door, then park and do paperwork.
I'm a black man who adopted a white child. One day, a white woman asked if he was mine. She asked to see adoption papers or she'd call 911.
At a Minnesota ice rink, I was 12 when someone said I stood out too much with my dark skin against the white ice.
In 2003, at a park in Washington, a woman told me to speak English or go back to my country. I was speaking Spanish to my daughter.
At a doctor's office in Michigan, the receptionist spoke slowly to me, assuming I didn't understand English because I'm Asian.
I first discovered racism when I was 9. I was winning a game and my friend said, well, at least you're not black. My dad is black and I am white passing. She had no idea.
I was 16 when I got my driver's license. My dad pulled me aside and said, if you get pulled over, speak calmly, keep your hands on the wheel, and never reach for anything too fast. That was my first lesson in how the world would see me.
They call it random bag checks, but my bag is checked every time I walk into that store. I don't know what random means anymore.
I want to talk about some of the things about racism and power that have deepened my thinking. Let me show you something. If this is racism, then this is prejudice. And this is privilege. And this is power. Prejudice. It's the first layer. It's the most visible. It moves in assumptions and judgments and quiet exclusions. It sounds like, you don't look Chinese. Are you sure you are? Or, you speak so well for someone like you. It's the teacher who moves a child to special education, not because they need it, but because their English is not their English. Prejudice is the first layer. It's personal, it's direct. It sits there sharp and painful, yet not always able to shake the world around us. This is privilege. Privilege is not about what you have. It's about what you don't have to think about. Privilege is walking out of a store and never wondering if they're going to check your bag to see if you stole something. Privilege is never being asked, "What are you?" Or never being told that your hair is unprofessional. It's the unspoken ease of moving through the world without your identity being questioned at every turn. It is the absence of barriers, questions, and doubt. Privilege doesn't mean that your life hasn't been hard. It means that the color of your skin wasn't the thing that made it harder. Now, this is power. Power is built into the walls and into the streets. It decides who moves freely, who gets stopped, and who gets questioned. It is the security guard watching you, the classroom turning into a courtroom, the schoolyard police, and children criminalized. That pipeline laid long before they even learned to write their name. It is history rearranged, repackaged, and repainted so they never have to face it. Power is structural, unseen, and insidious. Power is what turns prejudice into policy, and it's what makes privilege invisible to those who have it. It's what keeps the system intact, long after people who built it are gone. This is why racism is not just about words. It's also about who holds the power. It's not just about who's harmed, but who's protected, who gets to move, and who gets to belong. Racism is power plus prejudice. Without power, prejudice may hurt, but it doesn't reshape entire systems. That's why the argument about reverse racism doesn't hold up. Prejudice can happen to anyone, but without power, it's not racism. If you want to understand racism, don't just look at definitions. Look at how it moves through people, how it carves itself into memory and into silence, into voices, into spaces where a voice should be. I was 5 when we landed here. New country, new words, my tongue still holding my mother's language. But the school, it didn't know what to do with me. So they put me in a trailer, outside and apart. No invitations, no field trips, no voices calling my name to come play. Just a door that never opened. Just a lesson I learned too early, that some of us are meant to stay on the outside. I walked in just like everyone else, but their eyes saw something different. Their hands reached for the radio. Their footsteps followed. When I left, they pulled me back, not with words, but with suspicion. Not with reason, but with rules unwritten, but always understood. And as they checked my bags, one by one, item by item, the others walked past free, because their skin was not the receipt that needed to be verified. Let's take a breath together. Racism is a system baked into our institutions, shaping every industry, every structure, every opportunity through prejudice, privilege, and power. Now let's talk about how layered it is, how it weaves itself into every system, not in one place, but everywhere, all at once. It's in the streets, the schools, jobs, hospitals, housing. It's in the way that some sidewalks disappear and others stretch endlessly. In the way a child is told they don't belong, not with words, but with rules designed to keep them out. So how does it work if it's not just words and moments? Let's step back and take a look at big picture. There's individual racism. That's the assumptions, the everyday interactions, the things that we're told are just a joke or not a big deal. But they're part of something bigger. It's the looks and the doubts, the voices that say, you're different, you're other. This is institutional racism. It's how it plays out in organizations. It's the framework behind hiring decisions, school discipline, and who gets what medical treatment. It's who is seen as a good fit for a job and who is questioned at every turn. And then there's structural racism. This is the force that shapes and sustains it all. It's built into the blueprint of society. It's not a glitch, it's the foundation itself. It decides which schools have the newest books, which hospitals have the shortest wait times, which neighborhoods breathe clean air, and which are choked on concrete and smog. It's policy, zoning, and red lines that never fade. The quiet, relentless architecture of inequality. This is why racism is never just about one moment or one interaction. It exists at every level, in the way we speak, in the way policies are written, in the very design of our cities. Okay, think about the last time you had to wait for something, like a bus or a train, just in a line that didn't move. And picture yourself where you're there. Okay, now picture this. Here I am at a bus stop. There's no bench, there's no shade, there's no schedule posted. The sun presses down, the pavement below burns, the air is thick and unmoving, and garbage rests at my feet. I shift, I stand, and I wait. And the bus never comes. And I don't know whether I missed it or it's never come. Well, across town, there's another stop. This one has a shelter, a bench to sit on, a roof overhead, glass panels with advertising on it, sidewalks, a garbage can, but not even just a garbage can, one that has recycling in it to separate it. There's a screen with real-time digital updates about my bus, and a phone charger, and even Wi-Fi. I think about the people who wait here and how they step onto their bus already comfortable and rested. And I think about us, the ones standing on this side of the road, waiting in the sun, standing in the dust, the mud, soaking in the rain and the snow, losing hours to a system that was designed to leave us behind. This is not just about comfort. This is about who gets to rest and who is expected to endure. But it's not just here. It's also in the hospitals, where some bodies are believed and others are ignored. It's in the schools, where some histories are taught and others are erased. in the neighborhoods where trees shade some streets, while others bake under the heat. These things were designed this way by policy, by history, by choices made long before today. And once you start seeing it, you'll see it everywhere. If you've ever had the thought, why do you always make it about race? It's because it is. If you map it out, you'll see it too, if you know what you're looking at. And here's the thing, racism never moves alone. It doesn't exist in a single form. It is layered and tangled and twisted together with gender and class and disability. It finds new ways to silence, deny, and erase. For many, it means the world asks them to be just one thing. Not too much of this, not too little of that, not too dark, not too light. Not too foreign, but never belong yet. We're not allowed to be complicated, not allowed to hold contradictions, to exist in between. The world demands a single version of us, simple, neat, and easy to categorize. I was adopted by a white woman, and my entire life I've been questioned. People assume she's my nanny. They look at me and say I'm less black because my mother is white. We were the only black family in town. We moved in on January 4th, 1999. By February, the entire town had petitioned to have us evicted, and we left. Let's take a breath together. One of the most unexpected gifts of this project has been watching people find themselves on the wall. A moment of recognition, a quiet breath of relief. They read a story, and for the first time, they realize that they're not alone. I know that feeling, the ache of remembering something you never forgot, the way a story can hold a mirror to your past. I remember hearing that story, the one about the only black family in town, and suddenly I was 6 again, standing in the middle of a town that did not want me. We didn't know that we would be one of only 2 Asian families. We didn't know that that would mean something until it did. But the schools knew, and the neighbors knew, and the kids all knew. And no one came to help. Not the adults who saw our house get egged in broad daylight. Not the friends who knew what was happening. Not even the RCMP officer who lived next door. No one even said, "I'm sorry this is happening to you." Think about that for a moment. A whole town watching, saying nothing. It's happened to so many of us. It wasn't just a few people. It was an entire community. And that silence, that unspoken agreement to say nothing, that is its own kind of violence. And I can see that 6-year-old learned something in that silence, and it was rejection, and that no one was going to protect us. And this is how it stays with us. Not just in memory, but in the way we move, in the way that we navigate the world after. The weight of it lingers in the body and in the breath. And so we dance, to let it rise, to let it fall, and to make room for what comes next.
I'm Mexican around my white friends, and I'm white around my Mexican friends. When can I just be me?
My earliest memory is when I was in kindergarten. I wore my cultural clothes to school and everyone laughed. I cried all day.
My dad came to meet a teacher at my school. They mistook him for a janitor, and the principal directed him to the cafeteria. I'm mixed race, and my father is Mexican.
Are you sure you'll be safe in Vietnam? You know how those people can be.
I learned to make racist jokes about being Hispanic around white people because it helped me fit in. At least I thought. I opened doors, allowing for never-ending disrespect.
I keep getting asked by men of a certain age, where are you from? What are you? And then they tell me how much they love Asian women, ever since they were in the war. It's so gross, and I still don't know what to say in response. I am so uncomfortable.
I was adopted by a white woman, and my entire life I have been questioned. People assume she is my nanny. They look at me and say, I am less black because my mother is white.
My mother is Filipina. My father is white. A boy once told me I was lucky because I wasn't too Asian.
I want to share a reflection about what I've learned through this work. It's called Rest is a Seed. I have become fluent in the language of power. How it hums and it whispers, weaving through silences. Not always shouting, but always there, threaded into moments that seem too small to matter. It's deepened my understanding of how power and privilege slip between words, coloring conversations, reshaping truths, even in spaces made for healing. I stand here, protected by a myth, the model minority myth. Quiet, polished, acceptable. I know this project breathes more freely because I'm Asian, because I'm not seen as a threat. But if I were black, angry black woman, they would say, and the air around me would grow tighter and the space to exist smaller still. This would be too much. I would be too much before I could even speak. This awareness humbles me. It bends my thoughts like wind shaping sand, twisting assumptions, softening certainty, leaving me open, raw, and willing to unlearn what I thought I knew. I feel the need for rest in my bones. An ache that does not ask permission, that settles in deeply. Holding space is a beautiful weight. It's like its own kind of gravity. And I've learned it's okay to set it down for a while, to breathe, to pause, and to let stillness rise like an answer. I used to think that I had to be everything: the listener, the guide, the steady light. I thought I had to hold the whole world in my hands. But stepping back, it's its own kind of strength. Rest is a seed, a quiet magic. It takes root in the silence, and it deepens in the stillness, preparing to bloom. I know I'm lucky. I'm held by those who carried a weight with me, those with open hearts and steady hands, catching what I cannot for a moment, a day, or even longer. This work, this life, it bubbles up slowly, like healing, like love, like a story finding its way. Sometimes painful, sometimes breathtaking, and always powerful. Rest is a seed, a quiet magic. Healing is a process of rising, of breaking and bending and blooming. It's movement, soft and strong, a dance to carry us home, to hope and resilience and everything waiting in the light. And so we dance, to let it rise, to let it settle, and to make room for what comes next.
You belong. You matter.
You are seen, you are heard, and you're valued.
This is a very empowering experience. It is so healing to know I am not alone.
I see you, and I stand with you.
I might not be able to walk in your shoes, but I can take the time to track your footsteps and hear your story. Thank you for sharing and opening eyes.
Freedom is not freedom if only certain groups have it. I will fight for you. Don't back down.
You are not alone.
This project is the gentlest, most powerful opening up of a conversation about racial trauma I've ever heard of. I'm really grateful to have been invited to participate.
Your voice matters.
We are still here. We have always been here, and we will not be erased.
Let's lift every voice until all beings are safe to live in their bodies just as they are.
I used to stay silent when I saw racism, but this project has changed me. I will not be silent anymore.
Bubbling up helped me realize my race is not a problem. I feel lighter.
Thank you for sharing your stories. This is an important reminder of how we can do better and try and love each other more.
For my whole life, I wondered how to make a difference with racism. I thought change had to be loud and undeniable. I did not know that it could begin as a whisper. One story, one conversation, one moment at a time. Every story I've heard is like hand reaching out. A quiet recognition, a thread of something bigger. And through that connection, I found healing. Not just for myself, but for others, and the way I've watched them begin to heal too. This is the power of storytelling. It moves beyond the speaker, beyond the page. It ripples outward, transforming relationships, creating understanding, and opening spaces where silence once lived. And I've seen it, the quiet shift, the small change, the weight, lifting piece by piece. Healing moves through us in waves, rising, settling, and waiting to be known. Rest is a seed, a quiet magic. What we tend to is what will grow. Justice or indifference, courage or silence. We choose what takes root. What we name, we can change. And what we refuse to look away from, we can transform. So I ask you, what will you nurture? What will you plant and water and fight for? Because justice is not a single act. It is ongoing, and it belongs to all of us. And what we choose to grow will shape the world that we leave behind.